Okay. Dear kind and merciful Father, thank you so much for the opportunity to come before you once again. We ask that you open our hearts, open our mind, that we may comprehend the vastness of your work. These are the things we ask in your Son Jesus' name. Amen. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Now, Saints, I hope by God's grace you'd have enjoyed the previous lecture that we have done. And we are going to continue where we left off the last time. As a partial revision, we talked about being in the room. I'm sure if you guys remember, we talked about the fact that I am literally, we talked about the room that I'm in, and we talked about the windows and doors being doors. You guys remember that? Windows and doors, what are they called? They are called doors. Technically speaking, the right name for those specific area is actually insulin receptors. However, we're not calling them insulin receptors. We are actually calling them what? Doors. And we are in the cell. Remember, you guys are in the cell. I am out on the veranda, so I am outside the cell. So you guys are where? Inside the cell. I am where? Outside of the cell. So the whole room is considered a cell. Okay, so the whole room is considered a what? A cell. Where you guys at? You guys are literally inside the cell. Where am I at? I am outside the cell. We talked about the pancreas producing insulin. Insulin has two hands. One hand grabs the sugar, the other hand goes up to the door, open the door, put the sugar into the cell, and closes the door back. You guys remember that? That's just a revision for where we left off the last time. And we went as far and talked about the three polycysters. You guys remember the polycysters? Poly what? Come on. Polyuria. You guys remember the polycysters? Let me pull them up on the screen so in that way you will know what I'm talking about. I want to go through just a few slides and I'll get to the polycysters in a minute. The cause of diabetes type 2, what literally causes diabetes type 2 is actually fat in the diet and fat on the body. This was the information that I shared with you with the research by Dr. James Anderson, professor of medicine at the University of Kentucky College of Medicine. And I shared with you that Dr. Anderson was able to take lean, healthy young men and turn them into mild diabetics in less than 2 weeks by feeding them a 65% high-fat diet. A similar group he fed a lean 10% fat diet plus 1 pound of sugar a day and for 11 weeks and did not produce even one diabetic. And as a result, he eventually terminated the experiment within 11 weeks. So we know that based on the experiment, what literally causes diabetes is fat in the diet and fat on the body. So remember that, because you're going to hear a lot of different teachings out there in terms of the cause of diabetes. Saints, but I'm here to tell you, the primary cause, there are multiple causes, okay, but the primary cause of type 2 diabetes is fat in the diet and fat on the body. Remember that. Those are primary causes. There are other things that do cause type 2 diabetes, but those specifically that I just mentioned are the primary cause. So keep that in mind. Someone may say, okay, Brother Luke, what do I get high-fat, a 65% high-fat diet from? You get it from the butter that you may use. You get it from the chicken that you might be eating, your fish, basically all of the meat kinds that individuals tend to eat. These are the things that are causing you to have the problem that you're having. You'll also find that the French fries, these French fries are deep fried in oil. The cheesecakes, the ice cream, all of these are what's causing the problem that we're dealing with today. Now, the question is asked, can a vegan vegetarian have the same problem? Can a vegan vegetarian get diabetes? The answer is yes. How can that happen? Now, if you as a vegan vegetarian, meaning that you're one who does not consume any animal product, but you love to use excessive oil in your food preparation, guess what? You will have problems. I can tell you this much, and that's why it's so nice. That's why that at the restaurant we have here in Antigua, we do not use any oil in our preparation at all. The only thing that I think that chef may use a little oil in is if she's greasing the pan to put the potato in. Other than that, there is no oil in anything that we're doing. You know, so if she's greasing a pan to put some potato, or when she's doing like she's browning or searing the tofu, she will grease we use like wax, not like wax. Oh boy, this is what the Trinidadians use for a towel. We use a towel to actually to do our tofu. So it's like a cast iron, and we just grease it. You know, you got to keep the towels them oiled, otherwise they will rust in you because it's actually cast iron. So that's what we actually use, but we do not fry anything or use any like free oil in any preparation of the food. So my recommendation to individuals is that as vegan vegetarians, if you are one that tends to consume a free oil, I know that there are individuals that might be making a salad dressing, and before you know it, they'll put some oil, whether or not it's flaxseed oil or olive oil with some lemon, onion powder, garlic powder, and sit here making a dressing to pour over a salad. Well, what causes diabetes is fat in the diet and fat on the body. So even though someone is a vegan vegetarian, if they're one who consume a lot of free oils, I'm talking loose oil like coconut oil, olive oil, and these different things, they will have problems. I know that there's some individuals on the line here from Jamaica, and Jamaicans love to use coconut, whether or not it's coconut oil, coconut milk, a lot of coconut products in their preparation. You got to be careful with the amount of coconut you use. Now, can coconut be used? Yes. Is coconut healthy? Yes, it is. But temperance has to be applied when it comes to coconut, because of all plant-based foods on the face of the earth, it is the highest in terms of saturated fat. So there's some problems that we can run into if we over-consume or overuse even coconut oil, which can be even coconut products, which can be a good thing, but if you tend to abuse these items, it will be problematic. So keep that in mind. No abuse of even plant-based fats, even though plant-based fats are good. So that's something you need to keep in mind. Sugar. You know, sugar does not cause diabetes, but once you have diabetes, guess what? It makes the situation worse. Just want to kind of just give you a basic flow of information here. Basically, what the body does, the fat cells, when you bring in excessive sugar into the system, the body takes excessive sugar and store it into fat. Okay, the liver will first store it in the form of glycogen, which is basically a stored form of sugar. But when the liver and the muscles are filled, the fat cells kick in, and the fat cells store excessive sugar as fat. So keep that in mind. When there's excessive sugar into the body and obesity is the result, you'll find that the cells become resistant to insulin, excess glucose in the blood instead of the cells. Okay, so instead of the glucose getting into the cell like we were talking about, you find that it's in the blood, and thus the explanation that I give about the pancreas producing insulin having two hands. One hand grabs the sugar, the other hand is trying to open the door, trying to put the sugar into the cell, but cannot do it because the fat has locked the door, sealed it, and has thrown away the key. And then we talked about the polycysters. So keep that in mind, and I'm coming up to the polycysters in a second. So what is the definition of diabetes, or how does diabetes occur? Remember this, diabetes occurs when the body becomes unable to handle glucose or sugar, which builds up to dangerous level in the blood. And as you have heard it before, it's fat in the diet and fat on the body. It's all about fat. Who are at risk for insulin resistance? If one tends to be overweight or obese or being aged 45 or older, we find that these individuals are more likely to be at risk. But with today's society, even individuals, even children, I am seeing having major problems today. Even children are having major problems today because of the way that our children are consuming, the type of food our kids are consuming today. Having parent or sibling with diabetes, having a family background that is African American, Alaska Native, American Indian, Asian American, Hispanic Latino, or Pacific Islander American, these are individuals that we see are at the greatest risk. Giving birth to a baby, that's way more than 9 pounds, being diagnosed with gestational diabetes that develops only during pregnancy, having high blood pressure, anything that's above 140 over 90. If you find that the blood pressure tends to run above those way, we find that it puts you at risk in that situation. Having high cholesterol. Why having high cholesterol? Research is showing that 39% of the people who have high cholesterol also runs a great risk of having diabetes, okay, as well as having high blood pressure. So having polycystic ovarian syndrome, a lot of women today are having that, especially if they are in areas where they're not getting adequate amount of sunlight. Having prediabetes, impaired fasting glucose, or impaired glucose tolerant on an earlier testing. I can definitely tell you, just to give you some heads up, because individuals may say, well, when I went and had my blood sugar test, my blood sugar and everything came back normal. But one of the things individuals need to understand, that range of blood sugar, that 65 to 99, whenever I see that blood sugars are in the 90s, especially the high 90s, I see that individuals tend to have the same symptoms many times as someone who is a diabetic. So remember, at times, for everyone, numbers may vary. You know, someone can be in the high 90s without one symptom. Another person, as soon as they hit that high 90, they actually have full symptoms. So just know that symptom varies based on individual traits, what has been handed down to them from a genetic standpoint. Having other conditions associated with insulin resistance, such as obesity or acanthosis nigrans. Now, someone may say, what is acanthosis nigrans? Acanthosis nigrans tend to occur 10 to 15 years before an individual is literally diagnosed with diabetes. And I'll show you some images of acanthosis nigrans in a minute. This is the polyuria, which we talked about, the 3 polycysters. That's excessive passage of urine. Polydipsia, which is the excessive thirst. And the last of the polycysters is polyphagia, excessive hunger. Remember, we went over what those are. This is just a kind of revision to get you up to par as we get closer and closer. What are basic symptoms of diabetes? So what are some of the basic symptoms of diabetes? You'll find that individual will tend to be weak or even fatigue, tingling sensation in extremities, blur vision. You know, in the past you were able to see clearly, and then all of a sudden you says, I can't see clearly now. You know, what's going on? Things just have like a blur. Things are a little fuzzy. Things aren't as clear as they used to be. Dry and itchy skin. As a matter of fact, I'll tell you this. One of the things you'll find that as you're dealing with circulatory issues, poor circulation, you may find that as you start walking, if you're one that have not walked in a while, all of a sudden the whole body is going to start itching you. You find that you're walking, you're scratching, just walking and scratching, wondering what is going on, not realizing that the body is saying, thank you, thank you, thank you. I've been waiting for blood to come to this area, that there'll be sensation, that you can actually feel what's going on. So just to give you some heads up, basically what is happening is the body saying, listen, I've had this problem for years, but the reason why you've never seen it or felt it is because of the fact there was no circulation, there was no blood in that area, so as a result, you weren't sensing anything that was going on. You also have a genital itch. You tend to have an itch around the genital area, and that occurs when there's accumulation of glucose under the skin, especially in that genital area. So keep that in mind. You may find that some people, all of a sudden, you see they have a lot of itching in that genital area, not realizing it's an accumulation of glucose that is actually causing that situation. You'll also find that cuts and grazes tend to be a lot slower in terms of healing. You know, cuts and grazes tend to be a lot slower in terms of healing. You remember that acanthosis nigrans that I'm talking about? Now, here's what I'd like for you to do that you can actually take a look. I've had individuals on the side of their face, right on the side of their cheek. They get these black spots, one on each side of the cheek. Sometimes I'm watching television, and as I'm watching television, I see individuals come up to speak, step up to the podium, and there goes the black spot, one on each side of the cheek. And it's normally right on the cheekbones itself. Or you may get individuals like on the elbow, that they have these dark spots on the elbow. And you know what's the most common explanation for the dark spots on the elbow? Oh, to be honest with you, I tend to lean on that hand. Oh, blessed be the name of the Lord. That has nothing to do with leaning. It has to do with something called acanthosis nigrans. When there's too much insulin in the body, it actually begins to darken those specific areas of the body. The cracks, crevices, creases, knees, like right where your knees are, your elbows, around the neck, you know, these are even the knuckles. You find that the hands, right where the knuckles and the hands are, the skin texture begins to change. It tends to become more velvety. As a matter of fact, I'm going to show you some images. Take a look. When I took this picture right here, this was a fairly young lady. Let me think here. I think at the time I took the picture of that young lady, she was either in her late 30s, either late 30s or early 40s. I think in her late 30s, to be honest with you. And she wasn't someone who was overweight. She was a very slender young lady. So it was not someone who you would say is like the typical diabetic. As a matter of fact, she did not have diabetes, by the way. Okay? But if you look at her feet, you will see that her feet has that velvety look. You know what I mean? Do me a favor. If you guys can see what I'm talking about, look at the skin texture. Even as the skin is being divided, you know, you would see how it actually looks. Look right above that toe. The big toe, look at the big toe and look right behind the big toe where that joint is. You'll see how the skin at that first joint actually is after you leave the toenail. After you leave the toenail and you go back a little, about an inch, you'll see how that velvety portion of the skin. If you see what I'm talking about on the big toe, just go ahead and just, you know, send me a message. Let me know if you see it there. That velvety look right across there, and it just goes across, you know, all of the main, you can say basically the four toes across the front, but it's very defined on the big toe as well as that toe right after your big toe. So, you know, if you just take a look, you'll see exactly what I'm talking. Another basic thing to actually look at in terms of some basic symptoms is that you'll find that when individuals are diabetic or heading in that direction, here's what else you encounter. The nails, the toenails, tends to take on a yellow look. Okay, they tend to take on a yellow look. So if you look at her toenail, you'll see that her toenails tend to take on that yellow look. So these are some basic things, you know what I mean? And I want to let you know, it's not like a blanket statement for everybody, you know, but some basic symptoms that you can actually understand as you're assisting individuals. So I hope that would help you tremendously. The question is asked now, can a vegan vegetarian get diabetes? And as you would have known, the answer would have been yes. And that's why it says, Sister White gives us a caution. Care should be taken, however, not to use too large a portion of nuts. So vegan, vegetarian, even though they're not consuming any animal products, if they are ones who tends to overindulge when it comes to fat, overindulge when it comes to nuts, these individuals can also develop diabetes by overindulgence. So keep that in mind, and as long as you keep that in mind, you should be more cautious or temperate in dealing with these situations. What conditions are increased by diabetes? Your risk for blindness. Since I can give you stories upon stories of individuals that I have worked with or the team has worked with, and after putting them on the program, these individuals are able to see again. Nerves that were damaged were able to be repaired. Kidneys were able to be restored. Poor circulation, blockage of artery, all these situations were able to be completely rectified without any negative adverse situation. I remember a nurse, she's my cousin, who was working with me. She worked as a nurse at the local hospital here in Antigua. And lo and behold, nurse had a heart attack. And when nurse had the heart attack, Sister Natalie Nash and I put together a nice little program. We put her on the program. Within 3 weeks, when she went back and tested herself, she was completely clean and was able to return back to work. So I can definitely tell you, the body is awesome when it comes to repairing itself if you know what to do in terms of what to feed it, when to feed it, and how to feed it. And if you put the right things before, you'll be amazed to see it. Over in Barbados, I remember Brother Farley and I was doing some consultation over there, and a stroke victim came up to us, and we put him on the program. And I was just talking to Brother Farley the other day about that stroke gentleman, and Brother Farley said to me, Brother Luke, you should see the gentleman now back to normal. Saints, let me tell you something. I remember I was doing a program in Alabama, and I was doing a radio program with one of our Adventist pioneer. And I'll tell you who he is, so for the ones who know him, T. Marshall Kelly, he and I were doing a radio program there in Huntsville area. And while I was there, I was talking to T. Marshall, and I was telling him, hey, you know, if someone has a stroke in the Caribbean, we normally would use like nutmeg, and in no time we can reverse that stroke. So someone heard me sharing that information with T. Marshall Kelly, and immediately they got a hold of my number, called me, and the gentleman said, I had a stroke about a week ago, and I'm wondering, what can I do to correct it? I told him exactly how much of the nutmeg to use. And because from listening to his voice, I can tell that he didn't have much, you know, like in terms of speech and so forth. He didn't lose, basically didn't lose much of his speech. And he was a fairly young person. And all I did, I just have him take the nutmeg, cut it, put it in the corner of the jaw that he had the stroke. And he did that every single day. And since within 1 week, the jaw unlocked and all of the negative effects of the stroke was completely reversed. Okay? And it took us 1 week to get that. I remember I went to Jamaica, and while in Jamaica, I went to a nursing home. And while at the nursing home, there goes one of the patient there, one of the elderly ladies there. She began having a stroke while I am literally there at the nursing home. So I asked, I said, excuse me, the nurse and everybody else. I said, hey, do you guys have any nutmeg? They said, I'm sure we do because we have a kitchen in the back. And lo and behold, they did have the nutmeg. And because she was elderly, I was somewhat concerned about putting a half a nutmeg in her mouth, fearing that she may swallow it, not having good control at her age and her condition. So what I did, I had the chef grind the nutmeg to a powder and had him put the powder in the corner of her jaw. But I was mindful, since you got to remember, nutmeg is poisonous. So I was mindful with the amount that you put in, because she eventually is going to suck all of that into her system. Lo and behold, within the same day, within the same day or by the next day, the latest, this young lady was able to completely reverse the effect of the stroke, completely reversed it. As a matter of fact, I went back to Jamaica about 3 years later, and the owner of the nursing home came, hunted me down, found me, and said, Brother Luke, I want to tell you, I want to give you an update. That young lady lived on. She had a few more strokes after. We used the nutmeg just like you taught us and completely correct the stroke. And last year, I went back to Jamaica. This was about October. I went back October of last year, and the owner of the nursing home said, well, Brother Luke, just to give you some heads up, the young lady has since passed, but she did not pass because of a stroke or anything like that. And, you know, this was someone that we worked with, I think about maybe 8 years ago, is when I worked with that young lady, the elderly lady. So 8 years ago, when she first had the first stroke, we were able at the moment, because I was there, to have them take the nutmeg, put there, reverse the stroke, and she had a few more strokes after that. They were able to reverse every single one of them, and by God's grace, that young lady was able to live on. So understanding that these situations can be reversed, you know, you're not fearful, but changes have to be made. Both male and female, their sexual ability, their ability to perform the way they need to perform will be affected, especially our male. You'll find that, you know, there's no bone in that area, so circulation is the key. So in the event that you're one that are not utilizing, eating things that are good for circulation, you will find that you'll have some issues in that area. Hearing impairment, you'll find that these items affect your hearing as well as causes things like leg cramps. Okay, so keep that in mind. Now we are going to the Faucet Principle. I want to share some basic things about the faucet, and once you understand the Faucet Principle, it will make all the sense in the world. Along with that, one of the things that I want to do is that I want to get into, and I think by tomorrow evening, I'll be able to really break this wide open and go into the menu. I want to do some menu planning and food combination made easy for diabetics. Menu planning and food combination made easy for diabetics. So by tomorrow evening at our next lecture, I'm going to take my time, and myself, I don't know if Sister Nash will be in a position to assist. I don't know if Chef Pell will be available, but if everything works out good, tomorrow we're going to break this thing down to the nitty-gritty. I don't know if Brother Farley's going to jump in later on, but I'll wait until he messages me, and we'll figure out what's going on there. But let me talk about the Faucet Principle here, okay? Here is how the Faucet Principle works. Now, if I came to your home, right? Think about this. If I came to your home and you have a sink, or, okay, you have a sink and you have that faucet on the sink. And water is flowing out of the faucet into the sink. There's a stopper in the sink, so now the water is flowing out of the sink to the ground. Should I grab a mop and start mopping up, or what should I do in its order? Saints, do me a favor. Just go right ahead and message me there and let me know what is the method that I should use. Listen good. I have a faucet. The pipe is on. The pipe is running. There's a stopper in the sink. The water is flowing out of the sink onto the ground. Should I grab a mop and start mopping up, or what should I do in its order? Let me take a look, and I want to see what individuals are saying thus far. Okay? I see some answers here. Okay, one person said turn off the faucet and then mop. Another one said turn off the faucet, turn off the water. Okay, well, saints, I'll tell you. Okay, someone says turn it off and unplug. Okay, no one has really said the full answer that I'm looking for yet, but I will give you what I'm looking for. So listen good now. Our goal, remember at the beginning, remember when we very first started, the Spirit of Prophecy said, ascertain the true characteristics of the disease and then go to work intelligently to remove the cause. Remember, that's what Spirit of Prophecy says. Okay, so here's what you do. You go to the faucet and you turn off the faucet. You got to turn off the source. You got to turn off the source. After you finish turning off the source, then you unplug the sink. Kim Walker, you're cooking with gas. Okay? You unplug the sink. After you unplug the sink, that's when you start mopping up. You don't go and start mopping up before you turn off the pipe and unplug the sink, because guess what? That water is going to keep coming and coming and coming. It is important to identify the source, go to the source, correct the source. Once you correct it, you sit back and watch the glory of God. If that's clear, everybody say amen. Okay? So just remember, our goal is always going to the source. Going to the source means turn off the pipe, unplug the sink, and mop it up. So that is the method of operation that we'll be using in terms of the disease reversal this evening. Okay? So we have already set the foundation. Okay? You remember how the foundation was set? Come on, saints. Remember how the foundation was set? What sealed the door, lock it, and throw away the key? Let me see if you guys remember. What sealed the door, lock it, and throw away the key? Come on, saints. I want to hear. Let me see if individuals are listening here. What sealed the door, lock the door, and throw away the key? Let's take a look and see what individuals are saying. Okay? Yes, Marvelyn, you're correct. Kit, you're correct. Carrie Ann, you're correct. It is the fat. But you got to be careful. You can't just say fat, because if you just say fat, the answer is not correct, because fat was used in both experiments. It's 65% high-fat diet, okay? You got to be specific. It's a 65% high-fat diet because they had both fat in both experiments, but it's the fat in the 65% experiment that literally caused the diabetes, okay? So here's the situation. What specific items are high in fat? What specific items are high in fat? Because remember now, it's that 65% high-fat diet. Fat in the diet and fat on the body is what literally caused that caused the diabetes. So what specific items are high in that 65% high fat? Are you ready? Fish, chicken, turkey, beef, pork, shrimp, lobster, conch, crab, butter, eggs, ice cream, cheese, and animal milk. Are you with me, saints? Fish, chicken, turkey, beef, pork, shrimp, lobster, conch, crab, butter, eggs, ice cream, cheese, and animal milk. You're looking at your animal products. These are the items that are specifically responsible for that 65% high-fat diet. If that's clear, you say amen. So here's the situation. Someone has diabetes. guess what we're going to be doing? We are turning the faucet off. Now, says the difference between what Sister Nash, Brother Farley, myself, and Chef Pell, and the rest of the teachers are teaching this evening. We are not ones that believe that you should keep the faucet dripping. We believe in turning off the faucet, ascertaining the true characteristics of the disease, and then going to work intelligently to remove it. So if someone comes to myself and I say, Brother Luke, I have diabetes. Now, saints, what's the first thing I'm going to tell them? Stop eating what? All animal products and their byproducts. All animal and their byproducts, which means no fish, chicken, turkey, beef, pork, shrimp, lobster, conch, crab, butter, eggs, ice cream, cheese, and animal milk. Am I making sense so far, saints? Okay? And guess what I'm going to also tell them too? I want you to stay away from all free oils. All free oils. What do I mean by free oil? The coconut oil, the olive oil. Now, saints, I'm not going to even name the other oils because the other oils you should not even be using. You know, like those vegetable oils and canola oil, those you shouldn't even be using. So I'm not even going to mention those, okay? So keep that in mind. So all the oils, then, if you're ever going to use like olive oil or coconut oil, is more or less to coat a pan and not to fry it, deep fry it, or anything along that line. It's just so in that way that things don't stick and things don't move. Now, if someone is cooking rice, you don't need to put oil in the pot with rice, okay? So what we do when we are cooking rice, we just use water, okay? So keep that in mind. I see a Joan Robinson is asking, so why not olive oil? As I share with you, vegan vegetarians also get diabetes. How do they get it? Fat in the diet and fat on the body. Plus, here's what we found. You got to remember this. Here's what we found. We found that even good oils like olive oil and coconut oil, when there is established damage to the body, these damage the inner lining of the blood vessels. It's called the endothelium. They actually damage the blood vessels. So even if you have the good oils like the olive oil and the coconut oil, they will damage the inner lining of the blood vessel as you're making the repair and making those changes. If that's clear, you say amen. So just remember, all fats, all oils has to be taken out the diet. Now, someone says, what about nuts? Now, you can eat nuts, but as our prophet says, she says, care must be taken not to eat too large a portion of nuts. So individuals can use nuts, but they have to show caution in terms of the amount of nuts that they consume. As a matter of fact, I'm going to share a testimony, share a little story here. One of our first elders heard that nuts were good for him. And this is one of our first elders here in Antigua. A report came out where it talks about Seventh-day Adventists who consume nuts reduce the risk for heart disease by 50%. He decided that he was going to start eating about 4 ounces of nuts, maybe about 2-3 times a day. Okay? And the gentleman started on this nut craze and began eating such a vast amount of nuts. Well, lo and behold, even though nuts do not contain cholesterol, because of the high quantity of fat this gentleman was ingesting, the body had to produce cholesterol to counter the amount of fats that were in the nuts that he was consuming. So as a result, he ended up with extremely high cholesterol and actually had a heart attack as a result. Now, after he had the heart attack, I actually went to see him. And he and I began talking, and I said to him, I said, Elder, listen, you can have nuts, but not in the quantity that you were having. You misunderstood the quote in the Spirit of Prophecy, because she also come back and she says, care must be taken, however, not to use too large a portion of nuts. So even though she says it was okay to use the nuts, she said care should be care basically should be used in terms of not using too large a portion of nuts. So keep that in mind. I went ahead, put him back on God's plan, showed him the right way to consume the nuts, and lo and behold, saints, in a short period of time, we're able to completely reverse that heart attack. You should see the gentleman today. You'd have never known that he had a heart attack. Completely reverse it, and he's fine today. As you're looking at the images here, all of the meat kinds that has to be taken out. This is the nuts that I was talking. And here's the quote that Sister White made right here. She says, care should be taken, however, not to use too large a portion of nuts. And that comes right from the book Ministry of Healing. All artificial sweeteners and natural sweeteners have to go. Okay? Dry fruits, technically speaking, has to go. However, I want to share this with you. Even though dry fruits tends to be more concentrated, and normally I will tell a diabetic to completely remove it, if I work personally with a diabetic and that diabetic is in full compliance, I'll tell him do not remove dry fruits, because we can use the dry fruits as sweetness for them and still get full reversal, no ifs, ands, or buts. However, if I'm working with individuals who tend to cheat, who do not follow instructions, in that situation, I will tell you that I will adhere to strict principle. I only deviate from principle if I work with individuals that are in full compliance. Individuals who do not fully comply, I take them to the letter of the law, just to kind of let you know, because these are the very same individual that later on will come back and say, hey, this is not working, that's not working, and the reason being is because they're cheating. You know, Saints, let me tell you, I remember at Wildwood, I'll tell you a story that happened at Wildwood Lifestyle Center and Hospital. This gentleman, you know, he owns an Adventist radio station here in the Caribbean. He came to Wildwood, and while he was at Wildwood, they had a chance to put him on the program. Following the program, and the numbers are coming along real nice. Saints, all of a sudden, we see that numbers start getting outrageous and crazy. So we're like, something is wrong. This don't make any sense. 1 plus 1 is now equaling 3. And so we went to him and said, sir, can we ask you a personal question? Are you cheating? He says, oh, yeah, I am. We said, how are you cheating? He sent his wife down to the corner store, down like to the gas station, and had her pick up like turkey sandwiches and chicken sandwiches and stuff like that, and sneak it back on the premise. And when we give him his food to eat, he would not eat, but he will eat what he should not eat. Okay? And all of a sudden, saints, we start seeing the manifestation in the numbers. So what am I saying? One of the things that we find, this program works so easy and so, it becomes so predictable that whenever we see things not operating the way it should be operating, we know that the person is cheating. Saints, you can say all you want. I know you're not following instructions if I see weird numbers start coming back, because I know that once you do 1 plus 1, the result is going to be 2. And whenever I see 3 comes, I know that something is wrong. Saints, you don't even have to tell me. As a matter of fact, I'll tell you a story that happened to me just the other day. A young lady came to me, and she's having issues with arthritis, okay? Major issues with arthritis. I put her on the program, and she began doing awesome. And then I got a call maybe about 2 weeks later, and she says, James, I'm following the program, but I have so much pain. And she says, you know, I mean, I can't believe how much pain I have. I said, are you doing everything that I ask you to do? She says, Brother Luke, yes, I am. I'm doing everything, and I just have tremendous pain. And so I said, can you just come to the store and let me check you out? Come to the store, let me see you. Because, saints, let me tell you what I like. I like when individuals come to me that I can look them in their eyes and I ask them these questions, because once they start lying, I'll be able to tell. When she came to the store and I began talking to her, She says, James, I have a confession. I said, what's the confession? She says, my boyfriend convinced me to eat some fish. And I went ahead. I didn't eat a lot. I just ate just a little. And lo and behold, I got fish poisoned. And she says, after I got fish poisoned, the pain came back with a vengeance. She says, listen, I lied to you the other day, and my nephew told me that whenever you're working with people who are trying to help you, you cannot lie to them, because if you lie to them, then they wouldn't be able to help you because you're not giving them accurate information. So she says, I just want to tell you that I lied, and here's the correct information. Please help me. And since as soon as she gave me the correct information, and she says, oh, by the way, you know when you put me on the program initially, she said, it worked so good. It worked so good. I had no pain until I cheated and ate that fish. I said, oh, blessed be the name of the Lord. I put her back on the program, and I used a couple of simple things. I used like turmeric, MSM powder, and I used a couple other things on her. And since lo and behold, all of the pain was gone in no time. And, you know, she has since then come back and says, you know, James, I just want to say thank you. I am feeling so good, you know. But basically, I gave you that testament to tell you that whenever we put you on the plan, we know what to expect. And anytime we see numbers and things that are coming back that are outside the norm, we know that you are cheating. Saints, let me tell you something. We have been doing this program for so long, okay, that if you do things without even telling us, we know. You know what I mean? I can tell you, the way that you see the laws of health, the way the laws of health work, it's amazing. There's a cause to effect, and there's an effect to cause. And I don't know if many of you guys have seen the lifestyle assessment form, but if you have not seen it, you can go to our website and download it, the nhtlh.com. And let me tell you something. I remember when we were putting that form together, we put the same question, maybe about five or six different ways. Same exact question, but it's in like 5 or 6 different ways. So I find that sometimes you ask a question one way, and people answer it a certain way. Then you re-ask the same question a different way, and then they answer it again. And so I found that to get the truth sometime, you kind of just got to ask the same question in multiple ways, and then eventually when they answer it, you're able to add up all of that information, re-ask them another question so you can get some clarity and get the truth ultimately. I just thought I'll put that out there for you. So when information is shared, just from how you answer the question, I can tell what's going on. There's a cause to effect, and then there's an effect to cause. Okay? From the type of laws that you're violating, I can literally tell you which disease you have. Just from the laws you violate, I can tell you which disease you have. And you tell me which diseases you have, and I can tell you very likely which laws that you have violated. There's a cause to effect and an effect to cause. So keep that in mind. Okay. We talked about what else should one avoid, especially if you're dealing with diabetics. You should know from the get-go, diabetics under no circumstances should be consuming alcohol in any form. Okay? So keep that in mind. Diabetics should not be consuming alcohol in any form. If you look on that very same screen, you'll see some juice. I remember Wildwood had a chance to do an experiment, and this experiment was just basically a landmark experiment. And let me tell you what they did. They had a patient there at Wildwood with them, and they gave the patient, okay, let's see here. They gave the patient a grape juice, a tablespoon of grape juice. After they gave the patient a tablespoon of grape juice, they realized that the blood sugar increased by 10 points. So basically, saints, watch this. 1 tablespoon of grape juice will raise your blood sugar level by 10 points. Now the question is, How many tablespoons is in a cup? In a cup, there's 16 tablespoons. So if someone actually drink 1 cup of grape juice, you can count or you can bet that your blood sugar level will be raised by 160 points in addition to whatever your blood sugar level was before. So with that being said, remember this now, diabetics do not drink juice. Okay? I see someone is asking a question. They ask, is it okay to use a lot of the almond or coconut milk? Again, that goes along with temperance. The things that are good, you do in moderation. Things that are bad, you don't do at all. Okay? So going back to the juice now, as I've said to you before, that diabetics do not drink juice. If you're a diabetic and you'd like to drink some juice, here's how we do it. Reverse the diabetes first, and then we celebrate with a glass of juice. If that's clear, you say amen. Okay? So we are still working with our Faucet Principle here. Okay? I want to show you some stuff. We're going to have some fun here. Okay, there. So we address the juice. Diabetics don't drink juice. Now, this is fun. I remember when we came across this article, Sister Nash and I was like, wow, there they all come. They all keep coming. It says people who eat white rice on a regular basis have a significantly increased risk of type 2 diabetes. Okay, that came from the Harvard School of Public Health researchers. So guess what we recommend? We recommend that you eat whole plant foods eaten whole. Are we making sense there? Whole plant foods eaten whole is what we recommend. So if you keep that principle in mind, that you'll be amazed. It doesn't make a difference if you're Asian. It doesn't make a difference what your race is. As long as you are eating that high-fat diet, you will be at risk for diabetes. It doesn't make a difference race. Because when the experiment was done with individuals who were not diabetic, who did not have any trace of diabetics in their family, and when they consumed that 65% high-fat diet, in less than 2 weeks, they were mild diabetics. So remember now, it has nothing to do with that. It's just that there are races that are more predisposed to it. But if individuals change their diet and do things that are differently, you sit back and watch the glory of God. Okay? This I remember when Sister Nash and I ran into this information here, the research. It totally blew our mind, and I'll tell you an experience I had at the Sandy Grande Hospital when I was over there doing a lecture on diabetes. Listen to this, saints. 2 slices of whole wheat bread will raise your blood sugar more than having 2 tablespoons of table sugar. You didn't hear me today, saints. Listen to me. I am saying 2 slices of whole wheat bread will raise your blood sugar higher than 2 tablespoons of sugar. Okay? I remember when I shared that in Trinidad a few years ago, next to the Sandy Grande Hospital. The head nurse was in my class. She was there coming through the program that I was doing, and she says, James, I need to talk to you. And she says, we were encouraging the patients to eat the whole wheat bread. But guess what? She said, the patients keep saying, nurse, listen. Every time I eat the whole wheat bread, as you said, my blood sugar level go higher than it was before. But the nurse said, just eat the bread, you know. And I understand what was going on with the nurses. They're like, can't be. But what they didn't realize, that there was a problem with the bread. The problem that we had with the bread is that the current wheat that individuals are using, the wheat, barley, rye that they're currently using, is genetically modified. And as a result, the genetic modified grains, the genetic modified product, are designed to cause diabetes, are designed to put weight on you. So that's why we recommend that if you're going to use wheat, barley or rye, any form of wheat products, be it spelt, be it kamut, you know what I mean, be it the tricali, whatever you're going to use in terms of wheat, make sure that it is organic, okay? If it's not organic, at least make sure it's non-GMO, because we found that the genetic modified grains will cause you to become a diabetic, okay? So keep that in mind. Okay. Individuals may say, well, but Luke, with all that being said, what can I eat? What can I eat? Okay? And you're going to have some fun, okay? We're going to definitely have some fun. What can you eat? Very simple, and I'll show you what you eat. Here's a simple principle. Diabetics can eat all fruits, okay? Diabetics can eat all fruits. All fruits are available to diabetics, okay? There's no fruits out there that a diabetic cannot eat. Diabetic can eat all, okay? However, if you're going to eat, and I got to tell you, the two best fruits for diabetics is going to be mangoes and bananas. Mangoes and bananas are the best fruits for diabetics. So here's the situation. If you're going to eat mangoes as a diabetic, now you cannot sit down and put a bucket of mango between your leg and deal with its case. Okay, you can't do that, because if you're going to do that, the blood sugar is going to go up. I remember the other day a young lady came from the UK. She was a diabetic, and here's the situation. She hadn't eaten any mangoes in a long time. So she came home, saw the mangoes, and she remembered back in the days as a young girl, she just, pull up a bucket of mango, take a skirt, fold between her legs, and just pull the bucket right up between her leg and deal with the bucket of mango. And lo and behold, here's what happened. Just want to give you some heads up. After she finished eat that bucket of mango, the blood sugar level went to the roof. And not only did it go to the roof, but here's what happened. She had a stroke and ended up dying at that very moment. Okay? So I just want to tell you, even though you're able to eat mangoes, you're not allowed to abuse it in terms of how individuals may try to abuse it. Care must be taken in terms of how that is done. So you got to be careful. How much mango can someone eat? A diabetic can have roughly about two mangoes, if they're like Julie, the palm of my hand. So 2 of those would be appropriate. And if you're going to eat them, you want to eat them solid. Now, don't wait until they get a little soft, where when you bite, the juice run down your cheek, run down your face, and it drops to the ground, or maybe you catch the juice when it's about to drop, and you just gently tip your hand and get the juice back in your mouth, Those type of mangoes are not suitable for diabetics. Those are the mangoes that Brother Farley, myself, we can eat those. We'll sit back and enjoy those, but you are not allowed as a diabetic to eat those type of mangoes. You got to eat them firm and solid, okay? So keep that in mind. Brother Farley, did you want to add something there for me, please? Brother Farley, are you there? Okay, let me see if I can get him in here. Okay, go ahead. See if you can unmute there, Brother Farley. I'm not sure if you can because I'm in the lecture mode, but see if you can. I'm trying to see if I can get you in, but it's not allowing me. Go ahead. Can you get in? Okay, let's see here. Okay, I will see what I can do, Brother Farley. I think I'll have to take it out to lecture mode in order for you to be able to jump in. Let's see. How can I do that for you? I'll see here. See if I can do something special here. 1 second, dear. Okay, Brother Paul, hold that for me. It's not allowing me to, even though I have control. It's not allowing me to do it that way. You know, I see a mic and I'm clicking it, and because I'm in lecture mode, it's not allowing. Okay, so hold that, Brother Farley. I'm going to get you in. Let me go through my thought here, and I'll get you in, okay? So let's do here. Okay, perfect. Okay, so as I was sharing with the mangoes now, a diabetic, they can eat about 2 mangoes, ripe solid. Now, if you're dealing with mangoes that are, what's the big one that the folks in Jamaica like? Let's see here. Do me a favor, hit me that mango that folks like. Not the one that most people love in Jamaica. Now, I know I have a lot of Jamaicans on the line. What's that mango? It looks like a huge kidney. East Indian. Oh, blessed be the name of the Lord. That's what I'm talking about. I can't believe I forget about East Indian, because I do have an East Indian tree in Portmore. And next time I go back to Jamaica, I'm going to go and look for my East Indian tree. The family was about to cut it down, and I tell them, please don't cut the East Indian tree down. Please give it to me. And they actually gave it to me. So as a result, I want to let you know I have a mango tree in Jamaica, and it's an East Indian. And you want to know something? This is around the time my East Indian tree actually bear. So I'm going to ask Brother Taylor to just go and check up on my tree to make sure that my tree is still there, and that the family can remember they made a promise to me that that's my tree. So please tell them not to, not to think that it belongs to them. That's my tree. Amen. So bananas now. How does a diabetic eat banana? The banana, they can eat it solid. Okay, when it's solid without the spots and the freckles, that's the best way for a diabetic to eat banana. How much can they eat? Again, they can eat 2 bananas. They don't have to eat no half a banana or anything like that. They can easily eat 2 bananas as a diabetic. But remember this now. 1 banana, if you can get 2 hands over on the banana, that's 2 servings. So if you eat 2 banana, basically you're having 4 servings of banana. Okay, and those East Indian mango, that would be equivalent to 2 servings, just to let you know, if you do those nice, good-sized East Indian mango. Foods that are good to increase. Foods that are high in water content. Foods that are high in water content removes water from the body, and it actually helps to reduce one's weight. So celery, cauliflower, eggplant, the entire melon family, grapefruits, as long as you're not on specific medication that are related to hypertension, medication related to high cholesterol, as well as just check to see if any medication you're taking have any type of negative reaction to the use of grapefruit. And the reason being, if someone is hypertensive and they are actually using grapefruit, what grapefruit actually does to the hypertensive medication, it causes the medication to stay in the system up to 3 days longer, which means it intensifies the effect of the medication. Because if the medication is staying in the system up to 3 days longer, you'll find that the medication will be compounded, and that person's pressure will drop so low that they can end up into some major crisis if that pressure dropped too low on them. So grapefruit is not a fruit that you should be playing with if you are on medication. You need to verify to see if your grapefruit can be used with your specific medications. Okay, let's continue here. The pink salt. Now, since this salt has over 84 different trace minerals, iodine naturally occurring, it's the same amount of minerals found in the ocean, same amount of minerals found in the earth, same amount of minerals found in the human body. It's essential to use this salt. It's not like any other salt that I have seen. It's the best, hands down, when compared to any other salt out there. Diabetics can eat an abundance of fruits and vegetables. As a matter of fact, I don't know if you guys see that item that we refer to as Coralie or bitter melon. It's right next to the cauliflower. That item will drop blood sugar in a heartbeat. It is amazing in terms of lowering blood sugar. It's by far the most effective in bringing blood sugar down immediately. Mangoes are excellent in terms of preventing night blindness. Bananas are good, but specifically mangoes is the one that prevents night blindness. All forms of whole grain is acceptable. Now, I'll tell you what I found. I remember, you remember the days where they say diabetics should eat 3 meals and snacks in between? Well, I'll tell you, all of that have changed. All of that has changed. And here's what the brand new research that came out of the UK says. That says, studies show that diabetics did better on 2 meals a day rather than 3 or more. It also helped them to lose weight. So guess what? The principle that the prophetess have shared with us over 160 years ago is coming home to roost. It's coming right home, because we found that diabetics did better based on the research that they had on 2 meals than they did on the 3 meals with snacks. At the end of a meal, what a diabetic should do.
Brother Luke. Yes, I just want to add something here too with regard to the multiple meals. In the natural processes of the digestion, when one eats, it is automatic that the blood sugar level will rise, and that goes well for everyone. And so even as a diabetic, as it happens naturally, you find that with the regular meals, you keep getting these spikes in the sugar levels. So the elevation in the sugar levels would go up. And before you have time for that to actually level off, is that here comes another meal. So you keep getting the elevated blood sugar reading when you are testing, and it seems to be high all the time. Whereas if the meals is spaced out, and if individuals eat, the foods that are recommended here, you find that the sugar would be elevated gradually. It would level off and keep you going well without it fluctuating and dropping too low on the person. So I just wanted to interject there. So you actually see it, that the 2 meals per day works excellent compared to those regular meals.
Okay, amen. And what else can one do? Flax seeds are excellent. You'll find that 2 tablespoons of flaxseed freshly grounded daily works wonders. Pumpkin seed, we like that. It's a handful. By the way, if you're wondering as a diabetic what flaxseed will do for you, flaxseed is high in your omega fats, your omega-3, 6, 9. And what these actually do, which is absolutely amazing, because I was planning on dealing with this more on the dietary side, but I'll give you some pointers now. With the omega-3, 6, 9 fatty acids that are found in the flaxseed, this actually aids in the repair of the inner lining of the blood vessels, the endothelium. So flaxseed also helps with memory, which is one of the things that diabetics tend to run into. We found that 60% of all diabetics will eventually lose their mind if they don't make any changes. That's why you see most of the people who tend to develop Alzheimer's tends to be diabetics. Okay, so it's important that diabetics make these changes and make them fast. Pumpkin seed has an amino acid in there called L-arginine. L-arginine produces nitric oxide. When nitric oxide is present, blood vessels relax, blood pressure comes down. Amazing things happen. Pumpkin seed is amazing for blood pressure, cholesterol, blood sugar, men's prostate-related issue, parasites, and things. The list go on and on in terms of how awesome flaxseed is. Now, how does one unplug the sink? We already know how to turn off the faucet. How do you turn off the faucet? You got to change the diet. That's how you turn off the faucet. Now, the question is now, how does one unplug the sink? Now, saints, remember I told you guys that the door was locked and the fat sealed it and throw away the key? Well, now, here's how you unlock the sink. There's only one way to unplug the sink, okay? The only way to unplug the sink is through walking. Once you start walking, remember this, saints, 1 hour of continual walking is equal to 20 units of insulin. Within 7 hours after you start walking, all of a sudden, here's what happened. The fat begins to melt from around the door. As the fat begins to melt, let's go now. The pancreas produces what? Insulin. Insulin has what? 2 hands. One hand grabs the sugar, the other hand now comes up to the door, opens the door, put the sugar into the cell, closes the door back, and guess what? You're on your way home right now. The reversal process is in place as we speak right now because you have already turned off the faucet. Now you're unplugging the sink. How do you unplug the sink? The only way to unplug the sink is through walking. Okay? It's only through walking. Running does not do it because, and I explained to you the reason being it. Swimming does not do it, and I'll explain to you the reason behind it again. When you walk, what the body does, the body burns half fat and half sugar. 50% fat, 50% sugar. When you run, what the body burns predominantly is glycogen. What it burns predominantly is sugar. It needs rapid energy, and because it needs rapid energy, it does not have time to go after the fat. Because one of the things you'll find about fat is that fat tends to be sluggish. Fat is not one who volunteers itself. Fat said, look, take the muscle, you know, and the muscle is quick to say, use me, you know, but fat is just like, you know, with people who have the extra blessing, who tends to be a little lazy and so forth, just like how they tend to be lazy, just like that fat works in the body. It is not a volunteer, okay? So just remember that. Fat is not a volunteer. And as long as you understand fat is not a volunteer, then you got to force it to give itself up. Then you'll understand why walking is so important. Because when you walk now, what the body does, the body has time to calculate. The body has time to choose who he wants. And as a result, the body's going to say, give me the fat. And the body at that time will take half fat and half sugar. So as a result, you burn both. Now, saints, watch this now. When you go to bed and you walk early in the morning before you consume any food, because there's no food that has been consumed, the body has a tendency now of burning even more fat than sugar. Okay, so when there's no food in the system, you'll find that the body will tend to burn even more fat than sugar. So that's why the first walk in the morning without any food consumption tends to work amazingly. Now, saints, let me put some cautions here. As a diabetic, if you are going walking, listen good, if you are going walking without, if you're going walking, always remember to take a fruit with you. As a diabetic, take a fruit with you. Why take a fruit with you? Very simple principle. You'll find that the blood sugar, first of all, this program works fast. It works absolutely fast. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to pause right here because I want to get into the treatment. And I'll save the treatment for tomorrow and see if we can do treatment as well as our menu and so forth tomorrow. Because this section is kind of fun. and I want to make sure I take my time and give all the counsels and cautions the right way, rather than trying to cram it in just a few minutes, when technically speaking, if I take my time, I would like to just open it up properly and that you can fully understand. So I'm going to stop right here because of how critical of a section that this is, and we'll finish this tomorrow. We'll finish the treatment section and the unplugging tomorrow. Sister Nash, were there anything that you needed to say before I close the recording there? Okay, so Sister Nash is fine. Let me close the recording here, and then we'll move over to the Q&A. And I know Brother Farley needed to say some things to be recorded. So by tomorrow, I know that we will have the recording thing rectified with Brother Farley. So maybe I'll have Brother Farley save what he has to say until tomorrow, that we can record it. I would like to have that on recording.